Hey, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he did open up about the strange relationship that is going on in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Nick, what is your what? Give me your 2 cents about that.
It's uh it's it's tough, right? Like we talked about it yesterday with the he does the Kenny Mayne interview, and I think
Yeah,
I'm at the point today where, it changes every day, but I think I feel optimistic because I do think that there are a lot of things working behind the scenes. There's a lot of moving parts here, and this still feels to me
yeah,
like a situation where if you are going into this final stretch of your career, right? And as we talked about yesterday, you want to
yeah,
be certain that your philosophy and the front office, and maybe it's not just the front office, but you want to make sure
yeah,
that everything is fitting together nice and seamlessly, right? My thing is, this would be the point to sort of use all your leverage, right? This is the time to use everything you got to get what you want, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're Aaron Rodgers and you ended up getting traded anyway, like all the leverage that you have in Green Bay doesn't matter. So my thing is,
yeah,
if you're the type of person that understands like, hey, look, let me just kind of try to gain as much leverage as I can in situations and then hopefully never have to use it. But if I do, at least I'll have
yeah.
a lot. I think that what you're
Yes,
seeing right now is him kind of firing all the cannons and just being like, and his representation, because that's a part of this story that I
yeah,
don't like that doesn't get covered enough. Like he has an agent that's a big time agent.
yeah,
Like there's a lot going on here. And so I think
for sure.
they are trying to use their leverage as much as possible to get him as much of the stuff that he wants so he can be as comfortable as possible for this final
Yeah,
stretch of his career. The Packers are the only team that can offer him a 5 year deal. And I think that he is trying to make sure before he signs that 5 year deal that everything else is in place. And that's why I think you're seeing this
yes,
sort of slow burn. I think he knows he's a very smart guy. I think he knows, okay, I've got
yeah,
Aaron Jones is taken care of. Bakhtiari is taken care of. We've got the defense is in a good position. I like LaFleur a lot. Like we brought in my guy Blake Bortles. I like that. He's backing me
yeah,
up. Now I like if you're Aaron Rodgers, like you're setting yourself up right for whatever you want. I
yeah,
think he's looking to get Devonte Adams locked in long term. And then honestly, it's just like, look, man, like we're kind of good to go at that point, and I think he's just
yeah,
trying to use his leverage in every
for sure.
imaginable way to make this thing
Yeah,
like the best possible outcome that we can
yeah,
imagine. And I hope that my only hope is that he doesn't burn bridges with enough of the fan base. Like I don't trust all the other Packers fans.
yeah.
I can't
No,
like
because they're fucking idiots from time to
we
time.
can't exactly, and there's a certain percentage of them that is going to be very disgruntled, and they're getting more upset
Yes.
every day that we go with this.
Yeah, you see it if you're in Packers
Yes,
Twitter
and,
for
and
sure.
so I do. My hope is that we're getting close to landing this plane, right?
For
But
sure.
in my opinion, if I use the plane analogy, like I don't think this is an emergency landing. I don't think this thing is on the way down. Like I just think he is.
We're not Denzel Washington inverting the
No,
plane to
no.
land
I
this
think
bad
I
boy.
think
It's
things
it's
are
it's
fine.
not that
I
complicated.
think things are more
Yes.
than fine. I think that's what it is. I think he's unloading all the leverage. Like, think about it if you're listening to this in your own circumstance, at your own job. Like, you probably have certain, like, amounts
Yep.
of leverage in your own job. And this would be the equivalent of you being like, all right, here's my sort of list of demands. Here's what I know
Yep.
I bring to the table. I kind of know you guys are in trouble if I leave, right? Like if you're like the top salesman or
Yeah.
something, and you're like, I don't want to be this
Yeah.
guy, but if I'm disgruntled enough, like I want to stay here, but I'm gonna use my leverage then. And this
Yes.
is a position people find themselves in. Like I've found myself in it before. I'm sure you have too. Like I think that's all
Yep.
that's really going on here. I think that's
Yeah.
where that's where
And
I'm at right now, at least.
yeah. And the other thing about it too, which the mainstream media doesn't cover, but Pat McAfee, he touched on it on his show,
Uh,
was that Aaron Rodgers, if you're really looking at this, he's doing it for himself. Obviously, he wants to, like you said, have that security, make sure things are seamless. Like, because I do think he wants to be in Green
yep.
Bay. He's the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, all that stuff, the ties to Wisconsin that he loves. So I do think he wants to be in Green Bay. He just needs that certainty. But Pat was actually one talking about, and you don't see the mainstream media talking about this,
Uh,
But Pat was talking about how Rodgers is not probably only doing this for himself, but for other people in the
Yep.
league.
Yep.
Because you see it so many times that, well, it's a business, and he's just like, oh, well, I just got to uproot my family because I got traded
Right.
because it's a business,
Right.
that I wasn't even expecting type of thing.
Right.
So when you see a guy like Aaron Rodgers who he has been in support of the players before, maybe not the forefront, but I do see like this as his own kind of way of saying like, hey, once you get to a certain point in your career and you've been contributing and you're at the top of your game and the top of your position, you know, you can start to, you know, have get to a place where you have more security with
Yep.
the franchise. You have a little more communication maybe.
Right.
And it's not so much that you have input into decision making, but you have a little more communication, at least the luxury of knowing if something was going to happen to you before the media got a hold of it and then you're hearing it from a third party source.
Yep.
So I don't think like all like people look at Aaron Rodgers and they're like, oh, this guy, egomaniac. And it's like, I don't know what type of Aaron Rodgers or you've seen the past
Right.
year, but it just doesn't seem like that. And to me, I think like he's taken it to one to really lock himself in, but two to make a statement for other organizations around the league that like, hey, you guys have for quite a while now have forgotten about what makes these things tick.
Yep.
And it is the fans, it is the culture, it is the front office, it is those things, but it is the people essentially.
Yes.
And I think that's what he was really trying to get to is like, hey, without the players, the people that make this thing work, you guys don't you really don't have nothing, you know.
Right.
So really just a kind of just an interesting situation happening in Green Bay. And I
It's
was actually at the dispensary yesterday in a
uh
Green Bay Packers shirt,
uh
and it's legal here, so that's no big deal. And of course, wearing my Green Bay Packers shirt, a guy asked
yep.
me, he's like, I gotta ask. I'm like, what's happening with Rodgers? I'm like, well, to be honest, I think he's either gonna play for Green Bay, or he asked me where he was going. I'm like,
Okay.
well, he's either gonna be going to Green Bay or he's gonna retire. He's
Yeah.
like, really? I'm like, yeah, I don't really see too much in between. Like the Packers
Yep.
are adamant about not trading him, so that's not going to happen at least
Right.
this year, you
Right.
know. And so, and he was kind of shocked by that. And of course, he was a Bears fan, and we had a great conversation about it. But yeah, he was shocked like that. I thought the Packers wouldn't trade him, and I'm like, I think you might have been listening to too much of the mainstream media, who
For
has
sure.
blown this situation. I don't want to say out of proportion because it has gotten to a certain level, but they have exaggerated or brought in other information about this
Yep.
story that we have found out not to be true or not to be the real reasons of why he's upset and things like that. So that's a tricky thing when you're watching that mainstream media about like, well, what really is happening in Green Bay? And if you're not
Yes.
a Green Bay Packers fan, that gets a little more confusing as well
Yeah.
because you're not in there with the Aaron Naglers, the Rob Domowskis, those types of guys who are
Right.
covering
Right.
this stuff daily,
Is
um,
so the, here, but
who
here,
provide really great insight too.
here's an interesting thing about the team, right? Like you mentioned the Packers, and it makes me think back to what the CBS story that you were talking about. It's like the
Yep.
thing as a Packers fan that makes me actually kind of proud of the team is that, to be quite honest, part of the reason that I think it's so likely that Aaron's going to come back is because the team has created a bunch of leverage for their self where, to be
Yeah.
honest, when they're sitting in a meeting with him and his representation, they're able to look across the table and go, look, man, not only do we love you and want you here, but we've put a team around you that's phenomenal. And to
Yep.
be quite honest with you, like if you would like to be traded, we understand that you might have some frustrations, but where the fuck are
Yep.
you going to go that's going to be any better than here? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the leverage that the team has created, which is kind of awesome. Like they have
Yep.
actually built such a solid group around him that it's
Yep.
like they've created a situation where I'll be honest, if they stink without like if they were bad, like they didn't have a Devonte Adams or they didn't have
Yeah.
the caliber of defense that they have,
For
he
sure.
might very well be like, look, there's a better opportunity for me to win somewhere else. But the
Yep.
the thing is like there isn't anywhere
Yeah.
else that has a
Like
better opportunity for him. Like the Green Bay
yeah.
Packers, as we've covered many times,
For
maybe a
sure.
top three team on paper in the entire
Yep.
NFL. And so where's he going to go? Like they have built
Yeah.
that. And so,
Yep.
you know,
And and maybe if this was the Packers of 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, where they didn't have some of these talents or these guys weren't as developed,
Yep.
then that's a completely different story. And you would say Rodgers has a lot of the leverage. And like if you're looking at the Packers, you're like, well, they didn't take a wide receiver. They didn't take a wide receiver. They didn't take a wide receiver. They are okay at the wide receiver
Yes.
position and the tight end position.
Yes.
Like that is something that after the Jordan Love pick became hyped, like, oh, well, they didn't do this, they didn't do this. And it's like, guys, I understand that, but they did go get Devin Funchess, who sat out last year because of COVID and things like that. Hey, no problems there. That dude's rested, ready to go this year.
Right.
They have a team that is pretty star-studded, but it's just in a small market, so you may not know about as many of the stars as you should.
Right.
Like a guy like Zadarius Smith or Jair Alexander or those types of players that are
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, I mean, it is interesting to see how the Packers do have that leverage with Aaron Rodgers because yeah, like where are you going to go? And that's what I think eliminates the trade talk.
Yep.
Because it's like where are you going to go that you can be as successful? Like yeah, I know you make any team into a contender wherever you go because you are Aaron Rodgers, but there are different levels of contenders because
sure.
you could be a wild card contender, you could be an
For
NFC
sure.
Championship contender, and then you can be a Super Bowl contender. And
Right.
depending on how your team's set up, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is getting every single team to that Super Bowl just by himself.
Right. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
he's definitely getting any team to the playoffs.
Yeah,
There's
no
no
doubt.
doubt about that.
No doubt.
So, yeah, we'll see how many more days those lights stay green, Nick. But I'm
I know.
hoping by the end of the week. That's not insider information, so you don't have to worry about that. Also, we're not financial advisors, so take
Nope.
that into account when we're up here speaking. And it's just for educational purposes, the stuff that we're talking to you about.
Of
So
course.
you learn, so you understand, you're ready for the season, fantasy, football, all that good stuff. You have a great analysis, breakdown of everything. But it looks like maybe this summer you're going to have a really in-depth view of Aaron Rodgers and the things he brings to the table, and an in-depth view of the Green Bay Packers and the things those bring, or the things they bring to the table.
No doubt.
So it'll be interesting. Nothing like a little marriage counseling to get the things done, but hey, it's needed from time to time.
For sure.
But I did see that Gutekunst came out and he said he probably could have handled some situations better. Which to see that level of ownership and maybe some things that you didn't handle well, I think only helps this type of situation. So hey, I'm optimistic. I'm always going to be optimistic.
Yep.
I'll be optimistic till the day Rodgers says he retires, and then I'll still be optimistic.
Me too.
And
Me too.
that's just how I do it over here. That's how Nick is. Hey, that's what we do at Fancast, baby. You're never out of it till you're out of it.
That's the
but
truth.
You're really never out of it.
That's the truth.
So, hey, that's all we got for you today. We'll catch you next time, jabronis.
See you guys later.